Okay.
Did you hear from her? Yeah.
We have,
What's the?
okay, so we are live, and today is Tuesday, May 9th, 2023. This is the meeting of Senate Natural Resources and Energy. We are on the home stretch and wanted to pause and return to Act 250. And there, we've been taking some testimony on the requested exemption language that is in the House added. And just wanted to come back to that because I think when we first looked at it, I just want to make sure it's in the side-by-side, yes? As of last week?
Yes, Ellen Schakowsky, Office of Legislative Counsel. However, the House did make a change to it in the side-by-side. It's the only change in the language, and I have asked you not to print the side-by-side.
Yeah.
Because there are at least four floor amendments to S-100 this morning that are in the House calendar. So the bill will potentially change before you receive it.
Sure.
So there is only one change, and I have her post the up-to-date side-by-side. The one change is in bold, so we can discuss it.
Okay, so let's do that. And
And
so
that's
thanks
under
for
review
pointing that out.
today.
Like, we know that we're looking at a work that's fluid still, given that it's up for third reading today. There were amendments, there were like 8 amendments offered yesterday, something like that. I don't know how many are going to be offered
I
today.
cannot comment.
There's one that's
That's true.
posted before Ellen got to me, so just make sure you look at new ones. I'm taking the old one down.
So to pick the top one or the bottom one, or just
Bottom one.
bottom
The
one?
date is today's date, May 9th.
Yes, thank you.
For the side-by-side, and it's on our website. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, catch up with the right document here.
Sorry, so just to be clear, we're talking about the electrical distribution line amendment?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's sections 19B, C, and D, which is on page 30 and 31 of the side-by-side.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Your bottom.
So you said,
Side-by-side bottom.
said 31?
30 to 31, and it is on the paper copy that you received last week.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
you can look at that. There
Oh,
is
look,
one
it's right there.
change in it if you need to look at that.
Great. So we'll slow down on the whole thing because there are lots of moving pieces. For S-100, will you have the opportunity to revise the side-by-side tomorrow for you?
I intend to revise it tonight, yes.
Okay, great. Since it will lay tomorrow and then notice for us Thursday, so we're not gonna have an opportunity to act till Friday, so we will have time to catch up and see how everything sugared off. But it's good that we've looked at most everything new. So I don't think we had a chance to walk through with you in person the section 19 language.
Sure, I did go over it
Yeah.
when we did the joint hearing last week. So section 19B is amending 10 VSA 6081, which is the Act 250 exemption section, and it's adding a exemption that does have a sunset on it. So no permit or permit amendment is required for a retail electric distribution utilities, rebuilding of existing electrical distribution lines and related facilities to improve reliability and service to existing customers through overhead or underground lines in an existing corridor, road, or state or town road right-of-way. Nothing in this section shall be interpreted to exempt projects under this section from other required permits or conditions on land subject to existing permits required by this section.
19C, 6081 is the definitions of development. Is that what that word?
19C?
Yeah.
19C is repealing the language I just read.
But on a later date.
Yes, and so it repeals the language I just read on
I
January
see.
1, 2026.
I get it. Okay, thanks, sorry.
And then 19D is a report.
And
Yes, Sarah Watson.
thank you. And in D, the bold is new.
Yes, so yeah, I didn't get there yet.
Yeah, yeah.
So in section, do you want me to read it first?
Oh,
So in section 19D is the report that's required related to this exemption. And so on or before January 15, 2024, and annually until 2026, any distribution utility that takes action, an action exempt under 6081Y shall report to the House Committee on Environment and Energy and Senate Natural Resources and Finance on projects completed pursuant to that exemption in the preceding year. The report shall address the location of the projects, including whether it is located in a 1 acre town or a 10 acre town, how many customers are affected by the project, whether the project involves lines being hardened in place, buried underground, or relocated to the right of way, how many poles were removed and how many poles were set, and what permits the project were required to receive. So if you're looking at the May 9th version of the side-by-side, the language that's in bold is what's new from the House, how many poles were removed and how many poles were set.
Okay.
Thank you. So I brought this up yesterday, comparing the language that's going to be reported on, like what's going to be in the report relative to what's in 19B. Do you think that that the language in 19B would allow for them to do other things besides burying lines, bringing stuff to the rights of way, or just adding spacers, or hardening the lines?
So it specifically says rebuilding of existing electrical distribution lines and related facilities.
Rebuilding.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to hold it up. Well, let me back up. Are there other changes that are there other changes that we're asking for to S100? I can't remember.
Well, I think the question is the amendments, if there were any amendments that would come our way, but we haven't had any that have gone through right on the House side yet.
No, I mean, there is another amendment that was added yesterday.
To this section.
No.
Okay, so we'll see those other ones.
I'm gonna
When the dust settles.
I'm gonna hold off on.
Sarah down.
I'm trying to imagine what Herb Toma is calling about. And when we're dealing with broadband issues and the stringing of fiber, if a distribution utility abandons above ground poles and puts underground wires in place of those poles, that leaves a gap for how you connect broadband from house to house to house. In Montpelier, when they did the underground piping for the district heat, they were obliged to put in, I think, plastic piping for things like broadband and whatever in the event that it was going to be forthcoming. Is there any requirement when Green Mountain Power, which hasn't, to my knowledge, hasn't shown the same enthusiasm for broadband make-ready work that Washington Electric has been promoting? How can we in Washington Electric continue to use our poles for broadband? If you put something in underground that's electric, you've eliminated the broadband options that are available. This Green Mountain Power said, when we do this, we'll have a way to string broadband, or should it be obliged to put in the fiber when they are putting in their these electric replacement connections? That's my
Mr.
question.
Yeah, well, I think, so I haven't connected other than by email with, and text with Mr. Tomei, so I have heard from him from EC Fiber.
I was trying to think of what he might be thinking of on this issue.
So yeah, right, since they may well be co-located on a pole, that was a utility pole. And if utility poles removed, what happens to anything that's co-located on that pole, which I haven't heard any testimony.
That's the replacement of that pole so far. Thinking ahead of putting something underground that is unable in the future to accommodate fiber. Should anybody putting stuff underground be obliged to take into account how to put in fiber under, not, should we not be thinking about fiber in the future and not allowing such a change as we have before us, eliminate that possibility without it having considered it.
So interesting question. My understanding is there's an.
I'm sure.
We did hear a response on this during testimony.
Yeah. So,
Refresh.
yeah.
So we heard from Green Mountain Power when we had the director, I think his title was Director of Operations, who I asked specifically about that and kind of the concept of a dig once ordinance.
I apologize for having missed that.
No, not at all.
Recognizing your
No.
wisdom in asking the question.
Not even wisdom, just I like electric and internet being together and big conduits when possible.
Oh, good for you. Thank you.
So they told us, if my memory serves me correctly, they told us two things. One, they could leave the poles up if the company chose not to be included in the underground build. So we could respond to Irv, who is in our district with EC Fiber, and share that information. But I think that what we heard from Green Mountain Power's Director of Operations was they would make it large enough to facilitate them putting fiber in there, because they also see that as a benefit to them. Because yes, you're right, to make ready would also be something that they have to do now. And that's a debate on if Green Mountain Power or Washington Electric are doing it better with the make ready stuff. But they were very clear, at least when I heard the Director of Operations, that they were cognizant of that and they would be very much communicating with the folks doing the broadband work. And if they don't want to keep the poles up, and it's unlikely that they would still want to be putting them on poles, but they would make space and they would use large conduit to be able to
So
facilitate
Green
that.
Mountain Power today spoken to us about including in the text of the bill an accommodation to deal with that issue.
We didn't talk about that when they came in, but I know Dylan Zwicky is behind me, who is one of the advocates for Green Mountain Power. And
Perhaps you can share.
I would be amenable if we want to include
Well, for an
something
elaborate
of
plan.
that language, but it sounded like they were planning for it in the same way that it sounds like your concerns would be addressed.
So I think we should ask Green Mountain Power to speak direct. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I'm filling this back in, and if we have more questions, then let's ask them to provide testimony. The other thing I was flagged before we go to Sir McCormick is I'd want to ask for a review on what their obligations are. It's like the fact that you have a pole in an area in a right of way. I don't remember the rules that, I think there are PUC rules governing co-location. And I don't know to what degree any party's obligated to address the needs of another party in the same right of way, but it would be good to get that squared away.
Forgive me if this happened while I was away. Has this committee heard from EC Fiber about this?
Oh, we didn't, no. Irv wrote in his email, and I know he's no longer the chair, he did write that he was supportive of it, but had the concerns that Senator McDonald pointed out.
Yeah.
So we haven't had, but we can ask him to do written testimony, I guess.
Well, what's the timing on this? I mean,
We have till Friday,
okay.
so, around here, that's a lot of time.
It goes by
It's
quick.
Ellen's time.
We all have till Friday, right?
Okay, so why don't I
Or Saturday.
explain, we have 4:10. So let's flag just checking in, due diligence on the issue. what are the rules of the road for co-location? And what are the accommodations that, this would apply to every distribution facility. It's GMP that's because of its service in Wyndham County especially that's asking for that exemption. But we could ask these questions directly of GMP again. And I think probably before we do that, it would be good to know the rules of the road for co-location. Like who has what obligation.
Being hopeful, I think that maybe is no problem, that Green Mountain Power can accommodate or give assurances to EC5. And they're a major communication entity for the state. But I would like to hear, maybe on Zoom or over the phone from Irv Tomei.
Yeah,
And
I
from
thought
Green
we
Mountain
would
Power.
do
I'm from
exactly that.
EC. Yeah,
Make an appointment, have him zoom in if he's interested.
I think he is.
Oh, and Irv is listening right now.
Oh,
I'm guessing because he said, I listened to your testimony when he left the message. In Tiffany. So, Irv, if you're watching, expect a call and a Zoom invite for probably tomorrow. Sarah Watson.
Just one question that I've got about that, the co-location is, you know, if Green Mountain Power or other utilities have funding to do this work, I don't know where that funding is coming from, if it's a part of some federal dollars or whatnot. And so I don't want to pry too much into that, but, you know, wondering if that would be, if co-location to do other kinds of work would be within the scope of what is possible, if there are grants. And I'm speculating about that. I don't know if there are. So
Sure.
just want to make sure that if we ask them to do anything like that, that is possible for that.
Sure. Yeah, my understanding is, and we can reconfirm this, that they have, you know, like operations and maintenance costs, and then they do this work regularly. And in this case, I think my understanding was they're looking at it as a worthwhile infrastructure investment that will return improved service, and there'll be a return on it because it's so expensive to get out into cross-country wires and
Yeah.
fix them. Yeah. Okay, any other questions for council? So I think it's the PUC. Well, can you offer guidance on the rules around co-location to the committee? I don't know if there's statutory provisions or it's all under, there's a PUC rule about co-location, because I know it came before Alpar maybe 2 years, 3 years ago.
So I don't handle co-location specifically. I think Maria does. So I suspect you might want to hear from the PUC, but I don't know.
So we'll check in with Victoria Royal and the PUC, get the rules of the road on co-locations squared away, and then double back to Mr. Tomei, and finally, once we have all that squared away, ask GMP what their plans are around. Okay. Anything else? All right. The whiteboard up there is air traffic control whiteboard. So trying to keep track of where all the things are. And I think in the next day or so, I think we may want to think about, well, we'll keep monitoring what's going on. And my hope is to see more of our work rather than less get over the finish line before we adjourn. But I'm going to see how four goes on the Senate side and the House side. Okay. If there's no other questions for council, thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
And we